In John's Gospel, unlike Matthew, Mark and Luke, Jesus has seemingly done his internal wrestling in prayer with his heavenly Father before he comes to the Garden of Gethsemane. Indeed, in John 12, when Jesus predicted his death, he said, "Now my soul is troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour. No, it was for this very reason I came to this hour. Father, glorify your name." So when Jesus enters the garden in John's Gospel, he's a man in control who knows and has accepted what he has to do. And he trusts his heavenly Father wholeheartedly in this. As we read in verse 4, Jesus, knowing all that was going to happen to him, took the initiative, went out and asked the soldiers, "Who is it you want?" even though he already knew the answer. But his response is more remarkable still. When they say they want Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus says simply, "I am," or "I am he." And this prompts them to draw back and fall to the ground. Why? Because, as with the "I am" sayings Jesus has used elsewhere in John's Gospel, Jesus, in this seemingly simple response to their question, is taking upon himself the very name of God himself, which God used when he appeared to Moses at the burning bush. And this bold "I am" declaration, at this crucial moment, causes even those who've come to arrest him to fall back momentarily in awe. Jesus goes on to repeat, "I am he," adding, "If you're looking for me, then let these men go." Already Jesus has shown the same sacrificial love he will show the following day on the cross by protecting his closest followers from being arrested with him, because he knows they aren't strong enough to go on this journey with him, as is shown all too clearly by Peter's 3 denials in the courtyard. Peter desperately wanted to stick by Jesus and was brave enough to seek to follow him to the courtyard of the high priest. But when it came to it, his courage failed him. In this chapter, Peter's repeated "I am nots" stand in sharp contrast to Jesus' repeated "I ams." And Jesus refuses to let his followers use violence to protect him, commanding Peter to put away his sword after he'd quickly drawn it and cut off the high priest's servant's ear. In this, Peter clearly thought he was helping Jesus by trying to defend him. But in doing so, he was in fact going against God's plan. His instinctive response was not the right one. How often do we respond in haste to situations or to people who've upset us, only to regret it later, rather than first waiting on God and seeking his wisdom for how we should respond? Jesus' refusal to allow his followers to use violence is in sharp contrast to the weapons those who came to arrest him brought with him, and the violence Jesus was to suffer during the course of the following 24 hours at the hands of the Roman authorities. Jesus is willingly drinking the cup the Father has given him, and so is not trying to hide or escape arrest. Tom Wright makes the interesting observation that this scene in the Garden of Gethsemane is in a sense playing out the opposite of what had happened in the Garden of Eden back in Genesis 2 and 3. In Genesis 3, Adam, having sinned by eating from the tree God had told him and Eve not to eat from, is hiding from God when God comes looking for him. Here in John 18, as Wright points out, the roles are reversed. Sinful, violent men are coming looking for Jesus, the new Adam, the Word from Genesis 1 made flesh, in another garden. But Jesus, though innocent, does not hide, nor does he call on heaven's armies to protect him. He has no reason to do so, because as we've already said, he has already determined to willingly drink the cup his Father has given him for the sake of us. What can we learn from Jesus and the way he behaves here about how we might trust in God when things are seemingly not going well for us? What have we learned about Jesus and his relationship with his Father so far in this Gospel that helps us to understand why Jesus trusts his Father so fully, despite the horrors that lie ahead him? How can we follow his example to deepen our own trust in God and help us hold firm to him and our faith when we face challenges, whatever they might be? The theme of Jesus' honesty and openness continues in the second half of this chapter. When the high priest questions Jesus, he replies, "I have spoken openly to the world. I said nothing in secret." But his honest response is met by yet more violence by the officials who slap him in the face. John here carefully positions this conversation between Jesus and the high priest, in which Jesus is speaking only truth, in the middle of his description of Peter's lies to the servants. Jesus is speaking the truth openly, while Peter is doing his best to hide by telling lies. Interestingly, in John's Gospel, there's no mention of Peter's tears when the cock crows after he denies he knows Jesus for the third time. John leaves us to imagine just how awful Peter must have felt about having let Jesus down so badly. But I think we can take enormous comfort from the way Jesus seeks to restore Peter following his resurrection in that powerful conversation he has with him in John 21. Jesus knew Peter would let him down, but that didn't stop him loving Peter or giving him such a vital role to play in the early church. No matter how many times we ourselves let God down or feel like we have done so, he will never stop loving us. And we return to Jesus and truth in the final section of this chapter. When Jesus appears before Pilate, Jesus declares, "In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." And Jesus can say this because he was and is the way, the truth, and the life, as he's already declared to his disciples in John 14. But Pilate is left asking, what is truth? What is truth? Because he can only see things from a this-worldly perspective. He cannot see that Jesus himself is the truth, even though Jesus is standing there right in front of him. What can we do to help others discover the truth about Jesus for themselves? These are just a few of my thoughts. What do you make of Jesus in this chapter? What stands out most to you?